A Saturday morning at the Catholic Precious Blood Ministry of Reconciliation on Chicago's South Side. Mothers from across the city gather for a healing circle led by Sister Donna Liette.
We have Damon's picture there and Jimmy's, two of our young boys in the neighborhood who were recently, lives were taken by violence.
Most of these women here have children who were either killed or are in prison. They begin with a poem titled Stop.
Stop the killing, the drug dealing, and the gang banging. Stop the tears from falling from our mothers' eyes. Stop the pain that's in our mothers' hearts.
And then each mother tells her story.
There are shoes that my son wore, and he was a victim of gun violence in the Kentwood community, and that was about 2.5 years ago.
They took my son's life for no reason whatsoever. He wasn't gang banging.
My son is serving life in prison for a crime he committed when he was 15. He's now 36. So even though I lost him to gun violence on the other side.
The Precious Blood Ministry of Reconciliation also offers support to the other victims of gun violence, the survivors.
I come to the circle hurt, but I come angry. Because I feel like my nephew didn't have a chance. He just made 19 in December, just celebrated a birthday. I don't know how people could go through without faith, without God.
Father Dave Kelly is the ministry's director. He says the center tries to be a place of what he calls radical hospitality.
Accompaniment is walking alongside. It's very much a biblical kind of thing of just accompanying someone on the journey, being there on that journey. Not necessarily do I know where we're going, but I'm committed to you as a human being, and I'm going to be there for you.
We have communities and families that are super saturated with the experience of violence over multiple generations.
Reverend Susan Johnson is an American Baptist minister. She runs a program called Chicago Survivors.
We'll go with them to the medical examiner's office to identify the body. We'll talk with the police, with them, just to give them that security that they're not just at large in the midst of this crisis.
Among the hardest cases to handle are incidents of random violence. Louise Buchner's husband, John, was gunned down while he was unloading groceries from a car by a teenager who rode by their home on a bicycle.
It has changed me forever, my family. We'll never be the same again. You know, when someone come and take a life from you like that for no reason.
Jay Sheree Williams saw the father of her 3 children gunned down last year at their home by an acquaintance in front of her 4-year-old daughter.
It's like she's a newborn baby all over again. So, you know, she just want to be hugged and loved on, and now want to be reassured that my life is not going to be taken away.
I think we grossly underestimate the impact on children in urban neighborhoods where they grow up with an awareness of violence, with a personal experience of violence. When we look at children who are not performing well in school, whose attendance isn't good at school, we should ask ourselves, where's the trauma in this child's life and how can we intervene?
Williams did not want to remain with her children in the home where the shooting occurred. For months, she found herself moving from one relative's or friend's apartment to another. Chicago Survivors proved the one constant in her life.
They provided counseling. They also took me around to take care of a lot of business that I wasn't able to do and I was afraid to get on the bus and do.
No arrests have been made so far in either the Buchner or Williams shootings. Father Kelly, the Juvenile Detention Center chaplain, says even if suspects were arrested, incarceration is only a partial answer at best to curbing the violence.
There's a lot of research that will say that it does more harm than good. And what it does as well, because it is so costly, is it takes from the community. So the resources that we need in this community, good schools, I mean really good schools, mental health, jobs, those are non-existent because of the cost factor, if you will, for incarceration.
Kelly says there are other ways to hold kids accountable for their actions, especially those involved in nonviolent crimes. He's a proponent of an alternative known as restorative justice.
Basically, I look at crime or violence as a violation of relationships. People are harmed. People do that harm. Restorative justice is to repair, as best we can, those relationships.
I think it seeks answers as to why someone has done something. If you know why you've done something, then you can go about changing behavior.
Kelly has gained a powerful ally in Cook County Juvenile Judge Colleen Sheehan. Sheehan says she realized in her first year in juvenile court that she needed to look for innovative ways to rescue kids from the cycle of violence.
When I came to juvenile court, after the first year, there was a tally of 5 children who were on my probation that had been murdered. By the second year, the number had risen to 12. It had a big effect on me, you know, sort of kind of like, hey, what's going on here and what are we doing about this?
Sheehan began looking at alternatives to traditional courts. She's proposed establishing a series of restorative justice community courts. Instead of a traditional courtroom, young defendants would go to a place like the Precious Blood Center for Reconciliation and participate in a peace circle, similar to the ones already held for mothers struggling with the death of a child. Both Kelly and Sheehan say a key component of restorative justice is that community members must be involved.
If it's going to be a sustained effort, it cannot be a policing strategy. It's got to be a community strategy. It's got to be a community kind of coming together and really dealing with the issues.
Sheehan already has ordered juvenile defendants to attend restorative justice peace circles. She's even convened peace circles for police and teens. She admits she was surprised by the reaction she got from a young defendant in her courtroom when she proposed the idea.
I said, would you be interested in sitting with the police in a safe space, not invested in being a victim or blaming, but actually invested in solution? What if I gave you credit towards those community service hours? I said, would you be interested in doing something like that? And then he just looked at me, he stood back, he looked at me, and he said, I'll do it for free.
Police Lieutenant Laurel Bresnahan, shown here in a video made after the event, was at first skeptical.
She sort of flipped the tables and she asked us as police officers how we felt when we interacted with the community, some of the things that we dealt with. And I thought, well, wow, maybe somebody's actually going to listen to what we have to say as well, which was a very kind of a empowering thing.
One thing that I'm going to take away from today is to be more understanding, you know, to see everyone as not just a uniform.
There were police officers who said, I'm sorry. There were children who said they were sorry. And there were real connections going on.
In another of her initiatives, Sheehan sponsored a photography contest for police and teens called Bridging the Divide. It was another idea that sprang from her courtroom experience.
I had to be here because of support, that I knew I had support here.
Nearly all who work with those whose lives have been affected by violence say it is a deeply spiritual experience.
I talk about the compassion that we see in the community of survivors, the fellow feeling, the empathy, and the forgiveness. It comes out of a spiritual searching that people who haven't had a first-hand experience don't have to go through.
Sometimes it feels as if I keep trying to do things different and trying to push innovative ideas because I see something that's in front of me and I feel compelled to act. And sometimes it feels like there's a certain divinity that happens.
My work is in between Good Friday, which is the death, and Easter. Too often as Christians, we want to move from Good Friday to Easter, and we forget about Holy Saturday, which is the real place of the work of the church. Because most of us, most people, are living in the shadows of the crucifixion, wanting that resurrection, wanting that new life, that freedom, that liberation, but not there yet. And we work in this Holy Saturday moment.
It is that hope of something better that continues to inspire survivors and those working to stop the violence. For Religion and Ethics News Weekly, I'm Judy Valente in Chicago.